Remember the good old times when the Nuggets beat the Thunder and everybody was all excited and happy? Well, 2 losses without Nikola Jokic and Aaron Gordon, and everyone's ready to lose their minds. We'll talk about one simple fact. Jamal Murray has not been good enough, and we'll dive in with the usual amount of nuance and, well, excuse making here on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Hey, thanks for being an everydayer. Thanks for hanging out with us Monday through Friday. We've got an incredible community, and I'm grateful for each and every one of you, even in the hard times when everyone thinks that we're apparently some sort of group of excuse makers and afraid of Malone, which is weird, and afraid of losing the Booth accent. Lots of things being thrown around online. If you're just listening to this and you're a normal person, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys making this part of your day. Make sure that the like and subscribe button over at youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. Great way to support the show. On today's show, we will talk about the losses to the New Orleans Pelicans and Memphis Grizzlies without several of their best players, including their best players, because the Nuggets were without their best player, and whether or not the Nuggets are garbage without Jokic, which seems to be a topic of hot discussion. We'll get into Jamal Murray's struggles. We'll talk about how the offense is really having a hard time. We'll talk about all that and more on today's show. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by Ryan Blackburn. He is the NBA writer for Mile High Sports and the host of the Pickaxe and Roll podcast. This is No Jinx on a Monday. Ryan, let's not look. You can check the box scores. You're all smart people. You have phones. You could check the box scores. You know what happened. Let's start right here, Ryan. What's the bar we should have expected from Jamal Murray compared to what happened?
You would expect him to be able to score some points. Plain and simple. Okay. Like, that is the bar. That is the bar without Nikola Jokic, that when you miss 30 points per game from Jokic, who's been unbelievable to start this year in every aspect of the game, except for some defense stuff, but we don't care about that much. When you lose that element, I said on Friday that while I did appreciate what Jamal tried to do in terms of facilitating and sort of in terms of creating shots for other people, the thing that the Nuggets miss most about not having Nikola Jokic is that somebody has to score the basketball. Denver scored 94 points on Friday. They scored 90 points on Sunday tonight. And it just feels to me like there is no explosiveness for the offense when Jokic is not around. And part of that blame has to be shouldered on Jamal because he holds the ball for the vast majority of the time that he's out there. He is the one that's orchestrating. He's the one that's doing everything. He has the responsibility and he has the contract. And I think that it is fair to bring some ripe criticism for not crossing the 20-point threshold either time.
13 points on 6 of 15 shooting, 7 assists in this one, 6 turnovers to the Memphis Grizzlies. The thing I've been kind of banging on, and I started this last week when we knew Jokic was going to be out. My only thing is this. If you're going to say that the team is garbage and can't do anything and Jokic is everything, then you can't be surprised when they lose without Jokic. You have to be like, of course they lost because they're not any good without Jokic. You can't be outraged at Jamal Murray for not being good if you're also like, Jamal Murray's not good, Jokic is good. So either the players are good enough to win without Jokic or they're not. And I'm okay with either. If you want to say that the Nuggets are nothing and they're trash and nobody did it. Nobody scored any points or had any assists or any rebounds when they won 2 years ago. It was Nikola scoring 120 points and assisting himself. That's all that he did. That's fine. But then you can't also be like, I can't believe they lost. Who's going to be held accountable here? You can't do that because you're literally taking the other position here. That's my only thing is be consistent. If you want to say, now I think that the proper thing should be, hey, when Jokic is out, you need to step up because the Bucks have won games without Giannis. The Sixers have won games without Embiid. The Mavs beat the Thunder without Luka Doncic. That's damning here. For the Nuggets to go into New Orleans and Memphis and lose both times and trail the entire game, lose by double digits and score 90 points. And like, look, the roster construction, I can't get around here, guys. I'm sorry, I can't. There is $70 million in salary for this season missing on the court for the Nuggets. When you're top heavy and two of your starters are out, this is what happens. And you would like to have it be where, like, yeah, and the idea was, let's draft young guys and we'll have great young guys on cheap contracts. And it just hasn't worked out. Like, the young guys aren't any good. Zeke Naji's not any good at an NBA level.
The ones that are playing right now are good. The ones that can't get on or can't stay on the court don't deserve to be on the court. There's a clear delineation there for sure. And not everybody can play. And if you're a team like Denver and you commit like you have a roster spot that's off with a guy that has a torn AC or a torn Achilles, and you are having like multiple centers that you're trying to work through with Dario Saric, who had a good game today, and DeAndre Jordan, who had a bad game today, and Zeke Naji, who had a horrible game on Friday, then like one of those guys has to step up. And I think that Dario honestly played well enough in both games for Denver to get a W. But it's not on those guys. It's on the other starters that are paid a whole heck of a lot of money in order to get it done. I would have, like, Aaron Gordon would have been great in this game in particular. Just somebody who could, like we talked about the Jaren Jackson matchup in a prior episode. He would have been good against Jaren Jackson today. And it's just unfortunate at this point that the Nuggets are like really caught in between a rock and a hard place right now. They have a whole bunch of talented players. I really do think that these guys are good. I don't think that these guys are complete. Like there's no way that the offense should be this bad without Jokic, without Aaron Gordon. There's no way, in my opinion.
And I think here's the thing is with Jamal, if he's injured, okay, why is he playing through it? Yeah. What's the benefit of him playing through the injury? And it's like, well, the team needs him. Not this version. Right?
Yeah.
There's no evidence that, like, that we're always caught in this, I think, is when you're trying to analyze a team and cover it. If a guy's on the floor, you have to judge him. You have to judge him based off of if he plays and he's out there, you judge him on the results. And it's not fair because, like, in the playoffs, like Jason Tatum suffered a pretty bad wrist injury, like tore something in his wrist when they lost to the Heat in that finals or in that conference finals in 2022.
Right.
Like he had a torn wrist, but he played. And so you have to judge him because he played. Do I think Jamal's not healthy? Yeah, because I don't have any other explanation for Jamal going from a shifty, crafty player with burst offensively to this version of himself. I have no explanation for it. And again, there's things Jamal's doing well where I think that there's like this pure point version of him that's very good where he's selective. But also, the Nuggets didn't pay for that.
No, they did not.
Like, they didn't invest in Jamal Murray, competent third player who kind of brings everything together. They did not. That's not what they invested in. They invested in playoff killer, dropping 50s in the bubble, 30-point triple doubles, 30 on 50, 40, 90 versus the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, Jamal. And the idea was eventually you would see that in a regular season format. And like the idea that we're just never going to see that is extremely terrifying. Now, I always say this, the worst times with Jamal are always followed by rebounds. But I keep waiting on it, and it's been a while, and they just do not seem to be coming. On the other side, we'll talk more about the offense sputtering. We'll try and figure out how much blame to properly apply here. Whether or not this was a collective kind of and more. We'll talk about that up next here on Locked On Nuggets. Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Take a moment to say thank you to someone in your life. It's really important. This month's all about gratitude, and along with the fact that there's so many people to kind of thank in their life, I want to thank. I got to be real here for just 1 second. I got to say like a huge thank you to my wife, who has been amazing. There's a lot of stuff going on in my personal and work life, and you guys are going to hear more about that in the next couple weeks. And she has been an absolute rock for me, and I'm so grateful to her. But long shouting out my wife here, I also want to say there's another person we don't get to thank enough, and that's ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we're trying our best to make sense of everything. In this crazy world, that's not easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Damn, Jamal Murray needs better help. Damn.
There's another one that said Nikola Jokic needs better help too, which is pretty funny.
Yeah. Okay. So you said score some points for Jamal, and I think that's fair and accurate. MPJ had a good game on Friday, so like I'm willing to give him this one. Like it's, tough matchup, had a bad night.
I'll throw out a stat there as well. He had 8 straight games of 16 plus. He had 9 straight games of double digits heading into this one. He gets a pass. He's not the one that I'm looking at. I'm looking at Jamal.
Yeah. And so here's the thing is like, I thought Jamal got a little unfairly maligned for how the end of that playoff series versus the Wolves went. Like the heat pack thing was a disaster and a joke, and he should have been embarrassed.
Yeah.
That said, like he struggled versus a very good defensive team, and then he had a really great game 7, and the whole team ran out of gas. Like he was ready to have the moment, and the whole team kind of ran out of gas, including Joker, in that moment.
Yeah.
And so when everyone was just like piling on him and he was hurt, he was clearly hurt. I was like, okay, let's be a little bit reasonable, because I'm always going to kind of pull back on those extremes. The other reason that I will actually get all these like theories in the comments about why we're not more critical of Jamal, I'm being dead serious. Is that every single time I go to tear him apart, which I have through the years, he then follows it up with an absolutely marvelous game, and you look like an idiot. Like
then he lets you know in the presser too.
Yeah. It's this whole thing of like, and all you can really do is just be honest, which is like, I think Jamal Murray is still one of the best playoff players I have ever seen. He is an absolute stone cold killer. He has won in big moments when a lot of guys have never had the type of games that Jamal has. There are great players, all-stars, who have never had the type of games that Jamal has. But one thing that I have trolled Ryan with this, as I am wont to do, but there is an article of truth in it, which is, okay, that's awesome that he's had an incredible 15 games.
Yeah.
What about the rest of them? Because we're talking 82 games the last couple of years. And like, there's the 82 and 23. There's the 82 last year. That's 164. And it's going to be the 82 this year. Since he came back from the injury. You have to do more than just the 15 great games, because if you don't, then that I think is what kills him. Is like, if Jamal had an all-star caliber season and had a terrible playoffs and then the Olympics, the conversation now would be different, because it'd be like, well, he was an all-star last year. Like, he was awesome for us last year.
Yeah.
But he's never done that. And so, I was arguing with people on Twitter because I was like, I think Aaron's their second best player, because I value what Aaron does from a passing and defense and making things go standpoint. Like, you want to know why Aaron's the second best player on the Nuggets to me? Because Aaron brings it every single night. I don't ever find Aaron Gordon, even if there are nights where it's like, he was kind of not great defensively. Aaron's never dogging it. Ever. He's never just getting cardio in. He can't. His role is too tough. He'll stand out too much.
Yeah.
But Jamal's paid to be the second best player on the team. And inherent in that inherent in that is that he's got to be able to do stuff on his own. He can't, like, the Jokic merchant stuff kills me, but games like this only validate it. How am I supposed to sit there and be like, Jamal Murray's not a Jokic merchant when he has these games back to back in this situation?
Since the beginning of the 2023-24 season last year, Jamal has had 8 games of 30 plus points that he's scored. He hasn't played a whole heck of a lot of games because he's been injured. Yet hasn't always been super healthy during that time, but that's also part of the issue, of course. You compare that to some of the other peers that we have talked about with him in the past, because that's in the past now. Jalen Brunson. It used to be Shea. It's like Shea is in a different strategy.
You were ready to kill me last year when I said that Brunson would be better.
You know what? Because you want to know why I assumed that Jamal would just show up in the playoffs and be great.
Yeah.
And he wasn't. And you were right about that. Like that was, or not necessarily right, but like the possibility, the opening up of like, hey, what if we open up this can of worms if the playoff player is the perfect playoff player? That was the thing. And so we've talked about this and the consistency and the volume and the scoring. Devin Booker has 30 plus 30-point playoff games. Donovan Mitchell has nearly 40 of them. Anthony Edwards has 35. He's continuing to level up. You talk about these guys that we previously discussed as peers to Jamal Murray, and they have continued to get better. They have continued to add to their game. And Jamal, like, there are some points, and like I want to reiterate this. I thought he was really good defensively tonight. I thought he made some really good passes. I thought that there were some things that he did on the fringes of that other, like the main star stuff that he did. But it just doesn't matter anymore. Like I don't need to see that from him. I need to see him score the ball because he has not done it. And there's just so many things that I think about from him as an explosive scorer, a guy that had 50 points on 0 free throws, a guy that had 50, 42, and 50 in the bubble, a guy who had 30-point triple, like a 30-point 50, 40, 90 series. And he's just like, this is not that person. This is not that player. He's not moving the same way. I think there is a possibility, a stark possibility, that there are things behind the scenes from a health perspective that we are not privy to fully. And that is another layer of this that we kind of have to dance around and talk about.
And if Jamal comes out and is like, I'm going to be honest, there's some stuff going on in my personal life and it's really rough right now, I'm trying to get through it. Like I would be empathetic to that. Like
sure.
People go through stuff, right?
But he will never, ever do it.
Well, and it's not on him. Like, here's the thing: is like it's from his perspective, and I get it. Is from his perspective, it's like I don't owe you any explanation. I don't owe you anything, and I think he's probably right. The problem is like we're the conduit for the fans, and that's where that interaction comes from. Because the fans absolutely feel like he owes them an explanation for what's going on. Like that's the reality. Is like fans feel like they are wondering what's going on. And what winds up happening when you're in the conversation flow too, like that's a lot of what happens. What gets mistaken for me with making excuses for Jamal is when people go all the way to the edge. And I'm like, whoa. Because like there's this comment from Steven. Jamal plays good in the playoffs because Jokic is carrying and teams aren't worrying about him. De'Aaron Fox, Trae Young, Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell would all do even better than Murray with Jokic. Steven, that's too far. You can't sit there and act like the Los Angeles Lakers were not worried about Jamal Murray. You can't act like Miami.
By the way.
Yeah.
Like, ask Bam Adebayo, like whether he was worried about just Joker during that series. Like they were freaking out anytime that any of those two had the ball, and it didn't matter who had it.
And the Hurricanes got like Hurricanes here. I don't feel Jamal owes me an explanation. I just simply want to know why he's no longer a good player. Right? And that's
completely understandable.
And that's completely the thing is just like, I can't point to anything where Jamal is additive right now. Where, when you say Trae Young, I want to be like, come on. But also, how can I really argue that right now? Like, can I really honestly say that given this season, like, do I think they could have won a championship with Trae Young? No, I do not. I do not. Jamal's better than him defensively. And if you want to be like, Jamal's not good defensively, you're right. He's better than Trae Young. And that's like where this whole thing works out as. And I do think, like, look, this is a heated at the moment thing. And we do this every year, and everything in the immediate feels so big. And then we get to like March, and it's like, God, you remember that when like the Jamal thing was like a huge thing, and they lost that random Pelicans game on a Friday in November, and everyone lost their minds. And it's just like, look, yeah, these games happen and they suck. But that also doesn't mean that we should just be like, it doesn't really matter. No, it matters. Jamal had 2 opportunities to carry the team with both Aaron and Joker out. And if he had balled out and they had lost, we would talk about, hey, Jamal did his thing. That's what we would say. But it starts with Jamal. I can't sit here and be like heavy as the crown with Joker when he's on the court and then simultaneously be like, no, it's fine. No, like when Joker's out and you're the max player and you're the highest paid guy on the team, you got to step up and deliver. And Jamal simply has not in these last 2 games.
I'm looking forward to seeing whether he can bounce back. Again, you never want to bury him entirely because he has an opportunity to bounce back. There's 70 more games left in this regular season, of course, but it does sort of feel like there is momentum with the boulder rolling down the hill right now of like Nuggets fans are staring the contract that he just signed in the face. They're staring at the playoff run that he had last year and the Olympics that he had last year and the way that he started this season this year. And then they're staring at another 4 years. And there's a lot of pressure and we could talk about this a little bit more in the third segment. It is Jokic versus everyone for a lot of people in this fan base right now. And I think a lot of folks are burying Jamal very prematurely, believing that he will prevent them from ever winning a title ever again. And that's kind of unfair. But there's also a lot of folks that think that they could get a better number 2 if they wanted.
On the other side, we'll talk about this whole conversation about Jokic versus the Nuggets and why I got a little peeved about it. We'll talk about that in a little bit here on Locked On Nuggets. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. How about bet on them Broncos dominating win over the Atlanta Falcons?
Did anything happen today, man?
I had the Falcons today. I thought they were going to win. I had them like power rated, and I was like, they're better. And Bo Nix absolutely balled out. Absolutely phenomenal. Chiefs lost a game.
It's a good thing. For Chiefs fans, that is a good thing. You do not want to go undefeated.
I didn't wear my lucky shirt today specifically so that they would lose. I can afford that. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. When you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You can get a bet in on Christian Brown to win most improved player. A lot of value on that right now. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us here on a Monday. No Jinx, contentious one. Folks are not happy. It's been a roller. I can't do this for another 6 months, Blackburn. I can't have it be the Nuggets are terrible. The Nuggets are elite. They beat the Thunder. The Nuggets are terrible.
Get ready to learn Dark Winter, buddy. It's going to be
up and down.
It's going to be a dark winter, that's for sure.
So my only thing on this, and Ryan wanted to talk about it, and I didn't necessarily know I wanted to, because like here's the thing, I anyone that's a Nuggets fan, like you get to feel how you want, right? Like I think that you get to be a fan, and that's totally fine. And I don't want to lecture fans on their behavior. If you're a Nuggets fan, that means that you're a team fan. Now, I could just tell you like what that means to me is you should root for your team no matter what, and you should root for your whole team. You should want good things. Are there guys on the sports teams that I root for that I get frustrated with? Yes. Are there guys that I wish would get traded? Absolutely. That's your right as a fan. But to act like all of them are garbage because you love your star so much is where I start to be like, come on, man. The Nuggets did not win the 2023 title only because of Nikola Jokic. He didn't one-man drag him. We did a whole show on this last week about what if Jokic could just do that, because he hadn't. That 2023 team was stacked. It was awesome. It was so good, 1 through 8. That was a great team that the Denver Nuggets had in 2023. And one of the reasons why I've been lower on them is because they lost key pieces from it. But when we start to get into this conversation of the same guys that were on the court tonight, well, 2 of the same guys that were on the court tonight were key contributors to that team. They helped them win a title. And so to act like they're all garbage because they lost 2 games in November without Jokic, to me is awful. Like that really bothers me because I know they're better. You can be frustrated with Jamal. You can be frustrated with MPJ. You can be frustrated with, now you don't have to be frustrated with Christian. He's played well, but like you can be frustrated with everybody. That's fine. But you can't be like, they're all garbage. Jokic is all that matters. Go Jokic. Yay, Jokic. That's not good fandom. And if you're now we have a lot of the itches in the comments, and I get that. And that's different because that's national pride. And they only care about the outcome of one person. And I get that. But for Nuggets fans, some realization of the value these other guys do bring to the table, I think is worthy here, even when they don't play well like they did in the last 2 games.
I think that there's a very interesting couple of layers to this conversation. I'm going to start with this specifically. The Nuggets and Nuggets fans know how incredible Jokic is and how incredible this moment is in time. And there is this feeling of responsibility and not wanting to waste the moment and not wanting to lose out on what was clearly going to be the best player in your franchise history. Might go down as a top 10 player of all time, somebody who has that level of impact. And Nuggets fans have absolutely gotten a great run from it so far. Like, if you think about the first 9 years of his career, Jokic has 3 MVPs, a finals MVP, I believe 6 all-star games. I could be wrong. It might be 5, might be 6. But that player, and people have these agendas that they care about. They have these beliefs that they care about. They want to stack the deck with as many stats and wins in the playoffs and championships and awards and things that you can get so that your player can be remembered as the greatest possible version of themselves to other people. And I think that Nuggets fans are kind of smarting with that right now because they see this current team and they see the version of this team and they're like, is this doing the most for Jokic that they possibly can? And I think the answer is no. And we've talked about that. We've talked about why, but we've also talked about why they kind of had to do some of the things that they did anyway. So there's a lot of pressure. It's just mounting. And the later into Jokic's prime that we go, the more pressure there's going to be. And there's more pressure on everybody involved, from Malone, who gets undue criticism, even when he's not there on Friday, by the way. There's obviously pressure on Jamal, which is completely justified. There's pressure on Mike, which is justified. There's pressure on Aaron. There's pressure on Calvin Booth, which is justified. But people are never going to be satisfied unless Joker has 6 titles, unless he matches Michael Jordan. I got news for people. That's probably not going to happen. And that's okay. And you have to be understanding of that and appreciate that and be okay with the greatness that you're seeing right now, which is a different experience from what LeBron James had or a Michael Jordan had or any other historically great player. It's a different story that you're telling right now with Jokic.
It's really good. We should clip that for later. Turn on the TikTok camera, Kyle. So people want us to mention this, and I will just be honest, I hadn't heard about it. I had stuff I was doing last night with the kids. Jamal Murray went to UFC 309 last night. Yeah. I'll tee that to you. I have some thoughts, but do you have thoughts on it?
Yeah. So Denver obviously played in New Orleans. Then Jamal decided to go to Madison Square Garden. And that's in New York, obviously. And then they had a game in Memphis. And obviously New Orleans and Memphis are a pretty close flight. And the team is together. And you would expect that the team would be able to stay together in a moment like that. And I didn't agree with his decision to go. That was not something that when I saw that, I was like, my day is going to suck tomorrow because Jamal's going to be bad. The team's going to be bad. And everybody's going to be talking about how Jamal was at UFC. And look, if he had played well, if he had used that as an opportunity to kind of clear his head a little bit, play better and help the team get a win, more power to him. You got to do what you got to do. You have your own rituals. You have your own interests. I'm never going to try to take that away from you. But you were bad. You couldn't score. Could you have used a little bit of extra energy to get some of those shots off? Probably. He was short on every three. Might be having a red-eye flight. Could have been a problem with that.
So Jimmy Butler last year was struggling and was quote-unquote injured and out. And he went to the Miami Open for tennis because he's a big tennis guy. And Heat fans were understandably pretty livid over it. So my only comment will be this. What do you think happens when the Nuggets go into town and they've got 2 days off in New York? If they've got an off night in New York, do you think that they're all in bed? Do you think that they're working? They go to somewhere and practice? That is not what happens. What about when they go to LA? There's a reason I always say LA nightlife is undefeated. Same thing with Miami. And so ultimately, look, if they're not having practice, if he's not missing team meetings, Jamal gets to go do these things. Jamal gets to have a life. He gets to make these decisions, right? And if you want to say he played bad because of that, I think my bigger concern is I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
That's the bigger problem. Luka Doncic, there is more than one game in his past, and he's better about it now. But 2 years ago, it was very evident when Luka had been out the night before. And this is just a common thing in the NBA. And I'm not going to sit here and judge people based off of what they do when they're off the clock. You get to have a life. You get to do these types of things. Is it a bad look? 100%. I'm just going to say this. If it's he could have just, stayed out of trouble by either staying in New Orleans or going to Memphis. I've been to Beale Street. It's a good time. And so this is just the whole thing is my problem is that I can't tell you that was because it would be better if it was okay. Jamal been averaging 27. He went and saw UFC and was out late and got in late. And then he had a bad game and that's not great, but we move on. The fact that I'm I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not. He might have just played like that.
Yeah.
That's a bigger concern.
I would hope that I don't know. I've always wanted him to kind of learn from these moments and really try to take it as an opportunity to grow and just reassess and make sure that he is reinvesting himself into what the Nuggets need to do. And I just don't think that he's going to do that. I don't think that we're at that stage anymore with who Jamal is. I think he is who he is as a player. And I think that's I said this on Twitter. It's he may just be 20-6 and 20 might be generous with where he's playing right now. I think he'll get it up to 20, but he might just be that version for the rest of his life, which is it's not 25-7. It's not Anthony Edwards numbers. It's not any of these other guys that we previously discussed with him. And it's not a number two that Swipa wants. That's for sure. So there's a lot to unpack here. I hope he bounces back. The best story for Denver would be if he plays well and he finds a way to get better and just says F you to the rest of us and decides, you know what, I'm going to average 30 for 40 straight games. I just don't think he will. I don't know if he's capable of it.
It's going to do it for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. Swipe will be with you tomorrow. And believe me, Swipe has got thoughts on old Jamal Murray. So we'll hear from Jamal, and then we will do another episode of No Jinx on Wednesday morning. You guys can catch that on youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. Then we'll be back on Thursday with Ryan and Swipa, and then Swipe and Gripe on Friday. We'll have you covered all throughout the week as the Nuggets continue their season. Nikola Jokic I would bet likely to return here in the next few days. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys again next time here on Locked On Nuggets.